the problem. So increasing this with the Department of Homeland Security and spending more money doesn't solve the problem. Yes, we have every right in the world to know something about intelligence gathering, but we have to have intelligent people interpreting this information. But you know, just going for increasing presidential powers, as been discussed, is rather disturbing to me. This whole idea that we're supposed to sacrifice liberty for security, we were advised against that. Don't we remember that when you sacrifice liberty for security, you lose both? That's what's happening in this country today. We have a national ID card on our doorsteps. It's being implemented right now. We have FISA courts. We have warrantless searches. We've lost habeas corpus. We've had secret prisons around the world, and we have torture going on. That's un-American, and we need to use the power of the presidency to get it back in order to take care of us and protect this country and our liberties.
Thank you, Congressman. Let's see what the people down at Young's Restaurant are making of all this. Carl?
Well, what they're making of it is that we've reached the dessert course of the debate here tonight at Young's. We have a poli-sci major, a senior at UNH here, James Totkus. So with a bow to the Wildcats, poli-sci major, go ahead, James, have at it.
For Rudy Giuliani, I was curious. The subject of family values is separated from the rest because it's something that you can only lead by example. You can talk all you want, but it doesn't necessarily mean you believe in it. And I just wanted to hear what his comments on that.
So a question for Rudy Giuliani about family values. Why specifically, James? What's prompting this?
Because you don't see as strong of family as Mitt might present. I don't mean to target him, but it is a concern of mine and something I certainly believe in a good candidate should have.
James Totkus, poli-sci major, UNH.
I gather that question was for me.
Yeah.
Okay. The reality is that I think someone's private life, someone's family life, is something that you all look into to determine how are they going to conduct themselves in public office. And in my case, you have about 30, 35 years of experience to figure out how I would. I held one of the most difficult jobs in the country, sometimes described as the second or third most difficult job in the country. I held it under very difficult times. I'm not talking about September 11. I'm talking from the day I came into office with a fiscal crisis, a crime crisis, a welfare crisis. I turned all those things around. So quite obviously, any issues that go on in my private life, which I don't think are terribly different than at least some people in this country. I certainly haven't lived a perfect life. I am not running as the perfect candidate for President of the United States. I'm running as a human being who has been very successful as a leader and had definable results in a situation in which people thought it was impossible to accomplish these things. They thought it was impossible to take on the mafia. I succeeded in doing it. They thought it was impossible to reduce crime. I did. They thought it was impossible to reduce welfare. I removed 640,000 people from the welfare rolls. And they thought it was impossible to manage New York City. It was described as an unmanageable city. Now they're writing books about how well I managed it.
Thank you.
So obviously, any issues in my private life do not affect my public performance.
Thank you, sir. We got to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we're going to ask the candidates to respond to a scenario the next president might very well face. Stay tuned. We are back from the University of New Hampshire and the Whittemore Center Arena, known to all here in Durham as the WIT. This round of questions is going to be based on a scenario which we think is quite plausible, that any of you as president might well end up facing. It concerns Iran, and these are the circumstances. Its nuclear program has continued to advance. UN weapons inspectors have now saying that it appears that Iran is on the verge of being able to produce and may even be producing nuclear weapons. Iran has suspended its cooperation with the UN nuclear agency and asked the inspectors to leave the country. Cross-border incidents in Iraq involving elements of the Revolutionary Guards have continued to increase and are a continuing problem for U.S. forces there and for the Iraqis as well. The UN Security Council has imposed some economic sanctions on Iran, but has refused to authorize the use of force against that country. In addition, the threats by Iran's leader against Israel have become more pronounced and more extreme. What do you do? Congressman Paul.
For one thing I would remember very clearly is the president doesn't have the authority to go to war. He
So what
goes
do
to
you
the
do?
Congress.
So what do you do?
He goes to the Congress and finds out if there's any threat to our national security. And thinking back to the 1960s, when I was in the Air Force for 5 years, and there was a Cold War going on, and the Soviets had 40,000, and we stood them down, and we didn't have to have a nuclear confrontation, I would say that we should go very cautiously. We should back off. We should be talking to Iran right now. We shouldn't be looking for the opportunity to attack them. They are, at the present time, according to the AEIA, cooperating, and by the end of the year, they're supposed to be willing to reveal all that they are doing. So instead of looking for this scenario where it is inevitable that we have to attack, I think we ought to be talking about how do you get along with some people that are deadly, like the Soviets and the Chinese and the many others. We don't have to resort to war every single time there's a confrontation. They are not a threat to Israel. Israel has 200 or 300 nuclear missiles, and they can take care of themselves. So you shouldn't assume that we have to jump in and go to war, and we certainly shouldn't do it without the consent.